Hey, what's happening, folks? I always kind of got a little bit of laughter in me. I was going back and I was looking at my live videos and I realized I'm always rubbing my neck or something. And y'all should have told me. How come y'all didn't tell me I'm scratching my neck and rubbing my face in these videos like I'm Dave Chappelle on crack? But that's just this stuff is silly. But anyway, I wanted to jump on here real quick, kind of share something. I kind of got pulled into something. I'm always getting pulled. Why y'all pull me into stuff? Anyway, I kind of got pulled into something, and there's this going idea that hey, see, I'm scratching again. Like I got like I should have crack on my face. Man, I gotta stop that. No, I'm not stopping. It's late. I'm tired. Um, Now, I'm not going to go through the details of what I got pulled into. I wanted to talk about we got to quell this tension, man. You got to bring this racial tension down. We need adults to start acting like adults, and the more I see, the uglier it actually is. And so I kind of just wanted to share a few stories. No real deep thoughts today, man. I'm running low on coffee. When I get low on coffee, you're not gonna get much out of me, but it's late day coffee. So I'm not sure how much I have time to get into, but be careful what you say on social media. Be careful how you act because kids are watching. And if it's just drama, then it's just drama. So, it is what it is. But when you're talking about racial tension, you're talking about kids' lives, right? And I got pulled into something. I had a conversation last night. I'm not going to go through the details of it, but kids are dying. Kids are literally dying on college campuses largely because of the racial tension this last election caused. And if we don't bring down that tension, and if we don't start going back to acting like adults and talking like, it's not even about being an adult, it's about being mature. If we don't go back to acting mature, man, a whole lot of bad stuff's gonna happen. So I was gonna share a couple of things. So it just came to memory. Last times I can recall, I got called the N-word, right? And what was my reaction? So I can remember 3 times. One, so the funny thing about live, a lot of my friends on here, they'll remember these situations because some of them never were there. But there was one very significant one, and I grew up in this weird town where most of the people were they looked like me, and you had all types. Some had a lot of money, some had no money. I've always been a person to kind of stick with the little guy, right? The one who's worst off in a situation. And so it just so happened a lot of my friends when I went to school, they didn't look like me. A lot of my friends looked like me, and a lot of my friends didn't look like me, because if I saw a kid in the corner, nobody was, talking with him or playing with him. I was the weirdo to go talk with him and play with him or whatever. A lot of my friends were special, boy. But those kids grew up, man. Some of them worked for some of the biggest corporations, the most evil corporations on the planet too, but that's another story. Good morning, Stephen. How you doing? Good afternoon. So, but one of my friends, and I won't mention any names, didn't look like me. What race was he? Doesn't really matter, because none of that to me matters. But he came from one of the poorest families I'd ever seen in my life. I mean, it was bad. I mean, this kid would come to school with the same shoes every day, the same pants, multiple days in a row, the same shirt. And I wear the same shirt sometimes. That's another story. But I do it because I don't like kids in sweatshops making my clothes. But he did it because their family was so bad off. And I don't know all the details, but I thought it was that his father left. And he had an older brother, and he had a younger sister. I think he might have had an older sister too. You didn't know how many people lived in the house. There was no way to tell. You drive by the house, it was a shack. It wasn't even a house, it was a shack. Trash all in the yard, broken bikes and things. And he grew up looking at people like me, and he had nothing. And he just lived a devastated life, right? Like, constantly stealing, like he and his brother, they weren't allowed in any of the stores anywhere around. We had a store called Memco and Bradley's, and they couldn't go in any of them because they got caught stealing so much. Stealing, because they're bad. No, maybe stealing because they grew up in a community and they had nothing, literally nothing. Their father ran away. I think child protection was after their little sister, and probably after them too. And it was just, so my heart obviously went out to this young man, and we were friends, and increasingly he was getting in more and more trouble. He was going down that slide, right? They bring their dogs around the neighborhood, man. They had a whole bunch of dogs. And I think the dogs were probably an escape. It was a way to give them a little bit of empowerment. They could walk around the community with a bunch of little German shepherds and beagles and sick them on people, right? And, the more trouble he got into at school and with the law, because this is the life he was given, the less I dealt with him, right? Because I saw he was going down that path. And, and I looked him up recently. I went online and I looked him up. I guess I have to say his race, because I think, as much as I hate to say these dumb, ignorant words, it's not going to have the impact it needs to have with the people who I think need to hear it. He was a white kid, poor as all get out. His family, it was just, it was his mom. She was raising all these kids. And so he'd get upset sometimes. And he once called me the N-word. Now, mind you, I had food in my belly. I had, my parents provided a nice house for us. And I had different clothes every day, different shoes every day. And they were clean. They were not rags. We didn't live in a shack. And one day he got upset and he threw the N-word out at me. And I didn't respond. Why didn't I respond? I didn't respond. I don't think I really knew till recent events, because this conversation I was having last night with this gentleman about what some of the kids on these college campuses are getting into, some of the trouble. But I think it was a subconscious thing. That I knew why he was angry, and I didn't respond because I knew I had a spoon in my mouth. It wasn't a silver spoon, but damn it, my father made a good spoon for us, and his father ran off. So he's supposed to be angry. He was supposed to be upset. He was supposed to not like me. And when people don't like you, as you saw Kramer in New York, who is no more racist than anybody, threw the N-word out, right? So he threw the word, and I didn't respond. And I think he was angry. He was trying to get into a brawl with me. He was trying to do anything he could to get into a brawl. And finally, one day, he was just like, man, we gonna go at it. We gonna blah, 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 blah. And we fought that day. Now, mind you, I had to beat him a new one. I did. I beat the book. But, I didn't beat him that. I got him to the ground, and when I could have hurt him. I didn't hurt him. I got up. And I think I told this story before, and I walked home and I cried the whole way, man. I cried the whole way home. And I think it's just recently I'm really understanding why I cried walking home. It's because I knew I shouldn't have done that, and I felt bad, and I couldn't get out of it. I wanted to go home, and so there actually is a person on my profile who was right there. She rode the bus, and she can kind of confirm this, but he wouldn't let me get away. He wouldn't let me walk home. He rode my bus home. And so the only reason I did that is because I couldn't get away. But I still, man, it's still till today, it hurts my heart because I looked him up. I looked him up a couple months ago, and he's in the prison system. He's in the prison system right where his father put him. Right where his father, who ran out of his life, put him. Right where this society put him. And this is why, man, I have a different perspective when it comes to all these privileged conversations and turning people on each other. This society was built to make people fail. And, y'all, if you can't find empathy in your heart, I'm not gonna. So, it was a kid on a college campus who was stabbed to death. And the circumstances, looking at it, it looked like some of the circumstances I saw when I went to college, right? And I went to an all-black school, a historically black school, but it was in a small, historically not black town. And so there was major culture shock, right? Like, you got down there and it was like, whoa, hang on there. We got down there, it was cows everywhere. What the hell? And most of the time we hid on campus, but it wasn't long before trouble started. I think it was probably about 8 hours. We were on campus after our parents left. Somebody knocking on the door. Hey, man, somebody called us the N-word. We up at the McDonald's. We gonna go down there and blah, 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 blah. And my roommate and I mean, we didn't come from that type of family, man. We didn't react. We were just like, man, y'all have to go ahead. We didn't, I'm not getting in no car with you to go up there and fight somebody because of the N-word. And it was kind of a conflicting place for me to be because my father used to march down there, right? And I absolutely know some of the old cats I would see in the cafe, in the McDonald's, and different places. I know they were some of the ones throwing bottles and rocks at my father. But when I think back to this guy who lived in the town we grew up in, and his family, if I were raised in just the worst conditions imaginable, I mean, just subhuman conditions, and couldn't get a break, I think I wouldn't like whoever you told me put us there, put my family there. I wouldn't like watching everybody drive around in their Benzes and nice cars and stuff, and I got nothing. I got an old broken bike I pulled out of the pond and put another tire on that these other kids threw away. So I understand that. My heart goes out to that. So if I were raised to be that way, I probably would have been that way, but I wasn't. And so call it whatever you want, man. Call it black privilege if you want to call it. I had that privilege. I was raised in a good family, and I think it's my job to use whatever I was given to make sure that kids don't grow up like that, grow up to hate. Because it's not really hate. It's a trained response to horrible living conditions. And we see the same thing coming out of the inner cities. And so these kids coming out, they got that anger, and they're being told the opposite story on the other side, that this person caused this problem. So I didn't want to make this a long video. I try to keep them short, but the environment that these kids are going to these colleges in are not conducive to education. They're not conducive to living in life. And there's a lot of wrong on both sides. And you don't have to, man, but I hope that you really think about your actions and your words on social media. And the kids are watching and they're thinking that's what they're supposed to do. And remember, these are babies, man. These are 18, 19, 20-year-old babies. Why do I call them babies? Because they don't have frontal lobes. These children do not have the decision forming portions of their brain actually working. So they're looking at mom and dad being ignorant. Gotta be nice. Saying things that they know, acting in ways that they shouldn't be over this last retarded election. I had to go that word again. Let me bring it down. Don't set your children up for failure by sending them off that way. If you're sending them to school, don't set everybody else's kids up for failure because you can't find in your own self how to behave in public. Social media is public. And if you got these kids coming to your town, make sure that you understand where they're coming from. Make sure you understand that they are babies. They're babies. And they're acting how the current environment and culture is telling them to act, and they think this is how we're supposed to be. They think everything that we've done to get here as a human species was done so the first generation that could actually see the code, right? The first generation that could see the matrix code and how the ruling elite set everybody up based on whichever migration path their families took for failure, so that they could inherit their children could inherit the world. If we don't go back to acting like human beings and stop fighting amongst each other, I think somebody once said, this could be the last generation. It could be. But when they say that, make sure you understand it's the last generation of the ignorant, which is us. The upper, middle, and lower class will disappear, and the ruling elite will inherit the earth. This might be the last generation of the ignorant class, because those who run all of this, they know damn well what they're doing. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I wanted to make it short, man. Y'all gotta pull up. I didn't want to end on a heavy note, so I end on a little bit of humor. Cause I don't let a whole lot of this get me down. Listen, if I'm gonna be some nitrate in the soil because y'all don't want to figure out how to act, then let the bacteria take my body and let it grow a healthy tree so the ruling elite can have some great apples. I was down in Arkansas not too long ago, and you have to laugh at this stuff. You got to laugh at the racial. It's some of it's ridiculous. It's hilarious. So we were walking through the main street and we just kind of looking around. Mind you, everybody's being nice to us, cordial. And I'm from Maryland. I don't have the accent, but the accent. How y'all doing today? How love y'all. Hey, we kind of smiling. And someone asked us, there was a concert that was going to happen on the main street, and it was a concert. Oh, it's a concert. Maybe I'll stick around. It's going to be music and stuff, food and stuff. We way out of our element. But we were probably in our element, but we were raised at a time in that place. It wasn't the best place to be. We would drive down there and we'd get like police escorts from town to town, going through these southern towns, and the police just want to make sure that we got into town safely and got out of town the other side. So, but it was going to be a concert. And my cousin and I think we both looked down and saw that. I think we saw the sign at the same time. And the concert was called the Rockabilly Concert. Rockabilly? So we kind of just looked at each other, and it was like a firm, I don't think so. We will keep walking. We will not be at this evening's events. So, and I laugh at it because to me it's funny. You know, it's just some of our old, little stereotypes doing what it does. But anyway, that's my 2 cents, man. Y'all pull up. We want the future generation to not have to deal with this ignorance, and it's not gonna happen if we stay ignorant.